Hey everybody, JC here with another T&I toy review. In today's review we're going to take a look at the new DC Collectibles Red Hood and the Outlaw 7-inch Arsenal figure, which is part of their new 52 line. And this figure comes packaged in your standardized DC Collectibles window box type packaging, exact same colors as the Starfire figure which we looked at 2 weeks ago. Which is also part of this Red Hood and the Outlaws series. So we've got the white borders and the red. And then the figure's clearly displayed in the window box packaging. You've got the Red Hood logo up at the top and the name of the figure down at the bottom. Then on one side we have a darkened in image of the character, and then on the other side we have an image of the actual figure, and it tells us the figure was sculpted by Derek Miller. And then finally on the back we have a little thumbnail image with a little brief bio for the character up at the top. And then we have a look at all three figures in this Red Hood series. Arsenal, Starfire, which as I mentioned we looked at 2 weeks ago, and Red Hood, which also came out this week and we'll be looking at the next day or so. Okay, so let's get this figure open and take a look at what's inside. So here's a look at the figure outside of the packaging. The figure sports some nice details. I like the sculpt with this figure, and I think they've done a good job of capturing the look of this new 52 version of Arsenal. I've got to say the cap is kind of corny looking, but I do realize that it's comic book accurate, so I can't really fault the figure for it. And I do like how they've added the feature where the cap's not removable, but you can actually turn the cap. So if you want them to have it so the cap's turned backwards, they've made it so you can turn it around and do that, which I think is a cool feature. And they've got the little piece of hair sculpted coming out of the hole in the back of the hat, which again I think looks pretty good for the most part. He's got some nice detailing with the sideburns on the side of his face. Skin tones are okay for the most part, though I will note that on the arms of my figure, and I looked at a couple of these at the store, and it looks like it's kind of a common problem, but there's some splotchiness on the skin tones on his arms. So that's just something to note. It's not like horrid or anything, but if you really look at it, it is noticeable that there's some kind of splotchiness on the forearms. But I do like the detailing with the tattoos, came out looking really good. He's got a scorpion that says poison on one arm and some kind of, I don't know, octopus head or something on there. And then on the other side he's got another big tattoo that goes almost all the way down his arm. So besides the skin tones, the figure basically incorporates a various number of red colors. He's got the metallic kind of red paint on his wrist guards or his gloves, on the upper part of his gloves, where he's got the more flat kind of maroon red on his actual hands as well in his midsection. He's got a lighter red for his like vest piece in his pants. And then again he's got that metallic red down on his boots, and then for his feet he's got the darker flatter maroon type red. And then you kind of see that on his belt as well, that maroon red that kind of looks like a leather type material. He's got two arrow satchels. He's got one on his waist, and the arrows are not removable, nor is the sheath for the arrows. And the arrows on his side are kind of a softer plastic. And like you can see on mine, one of the arrows in the back actually kind of got bent in the packaging. So you could probably straighten that out with, I don't think it's supposed to be bent like that. You could probably straighten that out with a blow dryer or something if you wanted to. And then he's got the quiver on his back as well, with more arrows, again not removable or anything, but just some nice detailing there. And then his hat is gray. He's got some kind of marking on the top of his hat, which you can't really make out. It looks like it's supposed to be faded or something. So he comes with a red bow that has a flexible string tied to it. And the bow is, again, primarily that red metallic paint, with like the handle is more of the darker red to look like kind of leather wrapping, which looks pretty good. And he can hold it primarily in his left hand. You can kind of fit it in his right a little bit loosely, but it's not really, I don't think it's really meant to be held in his right hand. the right hand is more for holding the bowstring and the arrow. And he comes with one arrow, which is basically just a red shaft, a darker red for the feathers on the back, and then it's got a silver, like trick type arrow head on the front of it. And he can kind of hold it in his right hand. It does have a tendency to fall out easily, but you can kind of wedge it into the fingers there. But again, it does have a tendency to fall out. And then there's no place on either quiver to actually put this loose arrow. So if you're not holding it in his hand, then you just kind of have to set it aside. This figure stands just a little over 6.5 inches tall, so he's not quite 7 inches. Scale seems to be pretty good. Here he is next to the new 52 Green Arrow figure, and you can see Green Arrow is a bit taller. So the scale to me seems to be pretty accurate on this figure. Articulation on the figure, it's not as good as we've seen with some figures, but it's certainly better than the new 52 Green Arrow figure that DC Collectibles released. He doesn't have a midsection joint, unfortunately, but we'll go over the articulation here real quick. So as I mentioned before, the hat does turn, so you can spin the hat all the way around. The head turns up to the left and right, has a little bit of up and down movement. The hair, the way the hair is sculpted in the back, kind of prohibits him from moving his head too far back, but he can look up a little bit. And then the arms, he can get straight out. He's got good rotation at the arm. He's got the bicep swivel. He's got a single hinged elbow, but he can bend it at a good 90-degree angle. And then he does have a swivel at the glove cuff, but there's no wrist articulation on the figure. And as I said, he does not have any midsection articulation. The legs are on a ball joint, but you can't, because of the quiver on the one leg, he can do the splits about that much. He can do the leg forward pretty good and backwards pretty good. No thigh swivel, single jointed knee, so he can bend his knee about that much. And then he has some up and down movement. He's got a hinge at the ankle, so he has some up and down movement there at the ankle, but no pivot or anything. And then he does also have a swivel just below the knee at the boot cuff. And he has one peg hole at the bottom of his foot. For the most part, I think the figure looks pretty good, and the articulation is okay. I would have liked to have seen maybe a couple additional points of articulation just so you could get him in some better arrow firing poses with his bow and arrow. Maybe some wrist articulation and maybe a midsection joint would have been nice, just so you could kind of give him in some better poses. But it's definitely an improvement over the Green Arrow figure from the new 52 line. And as I said, the figure looks good and seems to fit in well. So if you're a fan of this character, then I think you'll definitely want to pick it up. And the figure is hitting comic and specialty shops now. So if you do want to add him to your collection, then start checking your local stores now. And that's my review. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Please subscribe. And until next time, I'll catch you later.